pleasant good morning and a warm welcome to your breakfast program. Good morning, Sierra Leone, using your live audio channel of choice. That's the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation Television on channel 31. And of course, today is Thursday, 18th day of June 2026. This program, as you know, it always starts with analysis and divergent views and new current affairs happenings in the country. I am your presenter, and for today, we begin with a quote. And a quote is from American politician Newt Gingrich, and it's a quote I'm so in love with. It says, "Perseverance is the hard work you do after you get tired of doing the hard work you've already done." That's something I strongly believe, you must ponder on as you go through your day today. Coming up in the program this morning, Minister of Public Administration and Political Affairs and Director General of the Public Sector Reform Unit speak on the Public Service Day, observed every 23rd June to celebrate the value and virtue of public service in the country. We shall surely be finding out. Government of Sierra Leone cautions Malado Traveling Agency over concerns relating to overseas employment, recruitment, and placement activities ongoing in Qatar. And we shall be taking a look at the newly formed Sierra Leone Young People's Party, a youth-focused political movement aimed at promoting leadership, national development, unity, and active participation of young people in governance ahead of the 2028 general elections. The program is Good Morning Sierra Leone. Stay with us. We shall be back after this very short break. Welcome back. The program you're watching is Good Morning Sierra Leone live on the SLBC. You can also be part of the program by sending your thoughts, comments, suggestions, or even questions, to the number displayed on the screen, or you can do so on our Facebook page at slbc.sl. It's now time for us to usher in our guests and begin the conversation here this morning. As the United Nations Public Service Day is celebrated on 23rd June every year, and of course you will realize why I was so in love with a quote earlier on. The UN Public Service Day was designated by United Nations General Assembly Resolution 57-277 adopted on December 20th in the year 2002 to celebrate the value and virtue of public service to the community. It encouraged member states to organize special events on that day to highlight the contribution of public service in the development process. This day was celebrated the value and virtue of public service to the community, highlighting the contribution of public service in the development process, recognizing the work of public servants, and encouraging young people to pursue career in public sector. It is core. Public service work is about supporting communities, serving others, protecting the rights and interests of the public. The mission of the civil service is the achievement of an excellent service for governance and other institutions of states, as well as for the public as citizens and users of public services, based on principles of integrity, impartiality, effectiveness, equality, and accountability. Well, in the studio to further the discussion on this very important but sensitive discussion this morning, we've been joined by the Minister of Public Administration and Political Affairs, Minister Amara Kalon, and one of my favorites. Good morning, Mr. Minister. Welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure to be here again.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, and also on this panel is the Director, Public Sector Reform Unit, Sulaiman Foye Musa, another favorite person of mine as well. Good morning, Director.
Good morning, and good morning, Sierra Leone.
All right. So for obvious reasons, I begin with the Minister. Mr. Minister, you are from that, though elongated, but very marathon, detailed and explanatory into I just read to our esteemed viewers. Of course, in so far as the day itself is concerned, Public Service Day, this is the public service itself is one of the flagship of the government, revamping the public service architecture, and as part of the Big Five Game Changers agenda of the president. So why is it this significant?
Thank you very much, brother, for this discussion. Let me premise my response on a quote from a brother,
Yes.
Yusuf Keke Thomas Andy,
Okay.
who is the press secretary in the office of the
The
president.
president. Yes.
Recently, he did a post after the president visited Bones Island, and he made a passionate post about his own experience. And I rephrased that post. He said, and how I have rephrased it. Say, reflecting on the last 3 years, I am reminded that public service is not defined by title or position.
Okay.
It is earned through the trust of the people who observe not only what you see, but what you do. Say, service is not a privilege, never taken for granted, but renewed each day through humility and work that uplift others before oneself. He said, also I learned that even when you give your best, some will still expect more. They will question and they will create doubt. He said, yet that too is part of service. It is not a burden meant to break you, but a calling meant to shape you. And so on this I premise my response.
Okay.
People aspire to become public servants. They enroll. Some are appointed because they want to work and give services to the people. But at one point in time, people expect that when you give your best, you are expecting for you to turn back, reflecting on what you have done so far, to be awarded or to be rewarded.
Okay.
Rewards come in the form of salaries. It comes in the form of upgrading, promoting you to another level. It comes with the opportunity of sort of building your capacity to perform. But here we are saying, let's look from another angle. How do we create the incentive? How do we make sure that we motivate those people? I know you are a public servant working for the government, broadcasting corporation. You left your house since 6 o'clock this morning. Your family are out there. You're here serving the people. Your expectation is not only about salary, but somebody to say thank you very much. Somebody to tap you on your back. And that's what we are doing on this day. June 23 was set aside by the United Nations to be able to celebrate public servants who are tirelessly working, dedicating their time, their resources to make sure that other people feel happy and other people grow. And we want this, that Sierra Leone has decided to join the world to celebrate our public servants who, since 1961, have helped us to become a sovereign country, who has transited us from different governance architecture, military rules, one-party state, democratic dispensations. We need to celebrate them. Some have retired. They are in their houses, sitting quietly, crying in their hearts that when they look around their parlor, there is nothing absolutely that would serve as a reflection about what they did when they were there. And so we want to remind people of what they did. We want to make sure that people understand that Sierra Leone appreciate them. Okay. And that's why we are celebrating June 23 in Sierra Leone for the first time. And giving awards to deserving retired public servants and also those who are serving as a presently. As a way of recognition, but also as a way of motivation, those behind to put more effort, work harder, so that year after year, there will also be opportunity.
So, Minister Carlo, just before you get, just before you get into the nitty-gritty of the celebration, the day itself, one might quickly be wondering, since 2002, United Nations caught the win insofar as celebrating public servants across the world. Why is it only now that Sierra Leone is getting to grasp this particular very important initiative?
I was appointed as Deputy Minister in 2018 in the Ministry of Political and Public Affairs. And in the budget, there was resources for the celebration of the Public Service Day. I'm not the one to answer that question because
I can
I saw when I retrospect,
Okay.
I saw it. Was it celebrated in within rooms? Was it celebrated within the boundaries of the Ministry of Political and Public Affairs? I don't know.
Okay.
But there was no history, no report, no indication that it was celebrated at this level we wanted to take it. And so that's what we're saying. We are taking it as a national agenda.
Certainly.
If we are celebrating June 16 of a country, right now, why should we be celebrating? We are celebrating children that were killed in Soweto. Why else can we just celebrate those who kept us away from what happened in Pretoria, here in Sierra Leone? And so we say, let's scale it up. Let's bring it at a national level, wherein we are having the president now himself, the chief public servant, recognizing those guys, all of you here. I can see faces here. 20 years back, I was here as the president of the Muslim Student Association of Ndala University.
Yes.
22 years, I was here as the Secretary General of the Hamdallah Muslim Youth Organization, cleaning this environment. I still see these faces. They are still here, working here. Are they expecting money? Yes. But at the end of the day, when they go back home, they should look at their walls and say, oh yes, I did what I did because I was recognized.
All right, so in that regard, Mr. Minister, I understand that, of course, this day is going to be used to give out meritorious awards to deserving, retired, and as well as current serving public servants who are going to be really be targeted.
Yeah, for now we are holding the names because we still wait on His Excellency the President to give the approval that indeed those people who have been nominated to receive these awards meets the President's approval. We are going to give around 28 awards, and the reason being because this is the first time we are venturing into something like this, and within short notice we decided to do it. We need to be careful because we don't want to select people based upon our own evolution. We want institutions to sit, discuss based on criteria set to identify within their institution those who were awarded following after this. So what we did was to look at specifics as a start so that it serves as the benchmark upon which other awards like this will be done. So we are narrowing it down for this time, and we cannot name names now because we don't know whether those who we have nominated will have the approval of His Excellency the President.
Okay, all right, very well. I think on that note, it is really very much enough for us to bring in the Director for the Public Sector Reform Unit, Mr. Suleiman Musa. I saw you nodding your head whereas Mr. Minister was outlining the significance of this all-important day. Your institution sits at the heart of government's initiative for transforming the public service, and you have been working ever since you took up office. Jokingly, I was saying at the start of the program that you are one of my favorite public servant officials currently because you are so passionate about what you do. You don't leave room for people to give excuses. Yes. Before coming to the day itself, can you please give us an update insofar as reforming the public service? Because this is, really the heartbeat of President Bio. Because if you're talking about human capital development, the public service maybe has the greatest point insofar as governance is concerned.
Thank you very much, my brother. Before coming to the date itself, let me allude to the fact that a lot has happened. After the war, there has been a lot of reforms in the security sector, the justice sector, the military, the police, anti-corruption, the economic sector, NRA, and all of this. A lot has happened.
Okay.
So in 2023, when the Ministry of Public Administration was created and given a mandate to look at reforms, we went back to look at what has happened, what worked well, what did not work, what were the challenges and weaknesses. We held a very big consultative conference. We brought critical stakeholders together We brought in the international community together to help us to understand how can we reshape the public administration trajectory. That consultative conference was for 3 days. We were very sincere.
Okay.
And we came out of that consultative conference with a strategic roadmap for the revamp of the public service architecture based on 8 pillars. We said, this is our public service. Let us be clear, let us be realistic, let us be honest to ourselves. What are the issues? Number one issue we identified is institutional weaknesses. And the pillar for that is institutional restructuring.
Okay.
We realize there are institutions within government that have duplicated functions, responsibilities. We realize that there are policies that are driving the functions of institutions which are obsolete. Some are dated as far as the colonial period,
Yes.
some as far as the 60s and 70s and 80s, driving modern day reform when technology, digital transformation is now the vogue. You cannot use those sets of policies to drive reforms. So we agreed that this is one issue and how we can tackle it through management and functional reviews. Number two, we said let's look at the human resource, the capacity of the people, the skills and competencies of the people to drive these functions. It's also a challenge. That was why during the war, we saw the advent of many implementation units that came to help and support government to implement most of the projects that came. They were never seated within the public service, core public service. They were created by PIUs. And those PIUs were metamorphosed later into agencies and departments of government. So that was an issue. So how can we attract the best brains in governance? Sierra Leone used to be the citadel of academia, where people were taken to go to Ghana, the Gold Coast, Ethiopia. People were taken to other countries across Africa to go and give knowledge to others. And these were civil servants. These were public officials. Names, big names. But we said, oh, let's build the capacity. Let's have the right people. 3, if you have the right people, pay them. Incentivize them.
Okay.
Give them the right wages. So let there be fair wages. We agreed, we realized in that consultative conference that there are people within the sector of the same grades in different ministries, departments, and agencies, yet receiving different salaries. That is disharmony, it's dissatisfying. It will create demotivation. People cannot work. Let's look at wage stratification. Let's harmonize. Number 4, let's look at performance management. If you have paid me, you require me to work. You set targets for me, realistic and smart targets, so that I can function. So we set realistic targets. Now, our target setting is on paper base, the iPass, the PTT, and all of this. How can we digitize this process to make it more accountable? It can be a 360-degree performance management system, wherein your supervisor and supervisee can sit together and evaluate exactly what is happening. So let's look at all of these things and digitize the process. Number 5, we said, even the process we are using within the public administration is archaic, it's outdated.
Very absolute.
We are still using papers. And even now you are using a paper.
Yes, that's
but if you quantify the resources that we are using to buy stationaries, I did a quick analysis on that quite recently. I worked with the Ministry of Finance Accountant General to see what is going to ministries, departments, and agencies of stationery. That can build a whole university. So why can't we digitize the processes? Other countries have done that.
Certainly. So
that is one of another key pillar. Number 6 pillar, which is the coordination. How do we coordinate the entire public service space? As I said earlier, many resources came to this country, but we don't know where those resources are till today, right? So let's coordinate. Let's look at the entire public service space to see where the resources are going. And finally, the 2 are cut crossing. One is the gender equality. If you look around the public service today, I must say, with dismay, that if you look around the leadership position, it's very difficult and handy to see women at the top, around the table. That's why the GIWI Act came into being. President Bio passed the GIWI Act to say let's have 30% of women sitting around the table. We want to see, work with the Ministry of Gender. That's why we say it's cross-cutting. And finally, we said citizens engagement. There's a means of civic education. Information and civic education. How can we get citizens to understand the reforms, the public service, what is happening?
So now, Mr. Foye Musa, let's stick to, now that you've highlighted these very significant 8 pillars, let's stick to at least 3. Pillar 4, which talks about wages certification and salary harmonization, and Pillar 5, performance functional review, and Pillar 6, which talks about coordination. You know, there's this calling a structural failure in our institutions. You know, the former American President Barack Obama, when he visited Ghana, once said, Africa should build great institutions and not great men. There was a gathering I was part of where you delivered the keynotes. You made mention of the fact that the public service is like a 4-legged table. The public public servants are like the legs that support the table to stand. If they are broken, the table cannot stand. If one leg is missing, then we have a faulty table. But again, a lot of people are of the opinion that they give more than they receive. And so far as Pillar 4 is concerned, how will you want to speak to that?
So as I said earlier, that was an issue that was identified.
Okay.
In fact, that was what gave birth to the creation of the Wages and Compensation Commission.
Okay.
So now the Wages and Compensation Commission is in being.
Yes.
It's functional, it's working. They have an office, they have people, they have recruited, they are working, they are putting their strategies together, they have a 12-pointer they are working on. They are now looking at a job evaluation to see how can we evaluate the jobs, how can we get the jobs into job families, how can we create the stratifications, how can we have a unique grading system wherein we know exactly the grading system, how can we pattern to know who has the highest salary, and how can we benchmark? So there's a work going on. I can tell you, in all sincerity and fairness, that the Wages Compensation Commission under this pillar is doing a great job, and very soon they will come out with those studies, those suggestions, those recommendations to government as to how we can harmonize the salary structure within government. So that's why it became a very critical pillar, because we can do everything without being motivated and well paid. I cannot do the work. I can be demotivated. You know, I cannot put in the efforts. That's why you see people working for government and they have 2-3 jobs.
So now that we have the public service day being celebrated, and of course the very first one is going to be 23rd of this month, how effective has MDs been coordinating? Because I remember when you first came into office, I remember you had this challenge. A lot of MDs, we are seeing it as if though you were too harsh with them, because like you made mention of the fact that some MDs are duplicating functions they were performing, and so you wanted to have like a merger where you can have 20 doing the same thing into one office. But in so far as we are concerned, this current dispensation, how effective are they being collaborating, PSIU?
That's a very good question. I think kudos to the Honorable Minister when he was first appointed as a Minister of Public Administration. One of the first papers as a minister that he tabled in cabinet was requesting for a cabinet approval for a management and functional reviews for all MDs within government. And he did not stop there. Because we needed to get the management and functional reviews, the recommendations being implemented, not just on shelves. So we have the cooperation of MDAs. The minister resuscitated again the steering committee on public service reforms, which was dead for 13 years. It was not operational. He resurrected it. And that committee is chaired by the secretary to president. So all of these reforms, they go through stages and processes. When we make the recommendations, we present them to a technical working group. The technical working group look at the synthesis report. Also, these are technical people. They make their inputs, and the reports move to the steering committee that is chaired by the Secretary to President. What happens there is all 17 institutions, critical institutions, including Ministry of Finance, that is the POS, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they are all there. They look at this report technically again and make recommendations and then approve this report and then communicate to the minister to say, we have approved this report. The minister, as the political lead, will now have the honors to table again this report to cabinet for approval for implementation. So once it comes back, MDAs can just collaborate to implement them. So we have seen great collaboration with the MDAs that we have provided the services of management and functional reviews for, and they are now functional. Many of them are across right now.
I believe that's a question I would also want to like to tailor towards the minister. Of course, is Sulaiman Foye Musa, Director for Public Sector Reform Unit, but we still have the minister in the studio. So, Mr. Minister, you've heard from Mr. Foye Musa. You seem to be heading a ministry that are people that are sophisticatedly knowledgeable about what they are really, trying to achieve insofar as, bringing the public sector up to speed to catch up with the vision of His Excellency the President. Now, insofar as the ministry is concerned, how is collaboration? How effectively our ministries, departments, and agencies also collaborate with the ministry to ensure that this is achieved?
Yeah, I think this is one of the defining factors in the reforms. When you do practical, realization of what you want to reform and what people want to see.
Okay.
As ministers, we have the mandate to provide the political and strategic leadership around our sector. And that's why commissions, agencies, and departments were established to provide the technical support. And within the ministries, you have the administration, you have also the technical wing. There are work that can be done within the ministry. So you have your technical team that advise on policies, that come up with policies. And whatever we do within the ministry is to make sure that the policy directive, the strategies, to make sure that the political vision of the president becomes a reality to meet the needs and aspirations of the people whom voted him in. But those commissions and agencies, they provide the technical support to make sure that those policies are implemented in different ways. You can have all the technical team in the ministry, but that doesn't mean they have the capacity to do it. You need to outsource.
Yes.
And that's the essence why you bring other institutions, sector players to support.
Okay.
I deal with public administration. Public administration in itself, you look at, we are talking about 8 pillars here, just 8. It's beyond 8. My ministry cannot, they cannot absorb that one.
So is it based on that some of other sector players, like other very strategic sector players, for example, the APIM is now under MOPED, Ministry of Planning?
Yeah, well, I don't want to premise my discussions on APIM. I want let APIM for another discussion.
Okay.
Yeah. So within what I do is to make sure that those institutions that provide the services directly to the people of this country get the necessary support and the resources they need and the backstopping.
Okay.
So the PSR is one. If they are doing management and functional review, how do I support them?
All right.
If the Public Service Commission is responsible for the regulation of the public service, how do I support? In terms of how do they recruit? How do they manage the onboarding? How do they manage performance? If the HRMO is the environmental manager for our civil servants, how do we support? If the Cabinet Secretariat is responsible for providing secretariat service to the Cabinet, how do we support to make sure that our colleague ministers really perform well? If we are talking about the wages and compensation commissions, how do we support them to harmonize salaries within the public service? So these are different scopes that we cannot do alone in the ministry. That's why we have those institutions. Those institutions are set for specific responsibilities. And that's why we need to work with them. And that's what we have been doing over time. And that's why we are seeing the result. Because for somebody who would say, Mr. Minister, we just this ministry 3 years, but you have been able to do so many things because I've been able to create relationship with those institutions and allow
strengthening the relationship.
Allow them, let's build that symbiotic relationship, that later core relationship. I support you, and you give me the result. And that's what we are doing. And that's why we have been able, you see, 48 management and functional review has been completed within 3 years.
Yes.
It would not have been possible with just the ministry, because don't forget, the staff I have in my ministry, we are never orientated in public administration. It's a new dimension. And you need to build up that capacity. But the PSR has been there for over 10-15 years. That's their job. So why can't we utilize them while at the same time they build the capacity of the staff in the ministry? So it's a symbiotic relationship. And that's where we are seeing the result. Because I did not come to start. There is already institutions that have been established. It's how we bring those institutions together. We see each other as partners. We see each other as contributing to the bigger goal of reforming the public service. So if I set the recruitment process, PSC should be able to utilize it.
All right. Sorry, Mr. Minister, we've digressed a little bit on the day itself. Because this is all, why is this very much important? Because our listening public, they might be very much interested in wanting to know some of these reforms that you are highlighting now. They've been, functionally, working effectively to ensure that we sanitize the space. But again, overlapping of functions and mandates is one big challenge that has really been plaguing the sector. I really want to be hearing your thoughts around that. There's also this delicate fine balance between public service, servants and civil servants. Sometimes it is hard to even draw the line. I see Mr. Musa is even smiling. But how have you been working to ensure that there's this curtail this challenge of overlapping of mandates and functions?
You know, my brother, again, this is good that we are discussing, and I hope we'll find enough time to really dive into this issue. You see, our public service has been plagued by different circumstances and political environmental management. Series of military schools, 21 years of one-party states, a democratic dispensation that has seen the transfer of power from the incumbent to the opposition for 2 times. And that has influenced the way the public service we have now. And we should not shy away from it. There are issues. There are issues of processes. There are issues of systems. There are issues of mindset. There are issues of how people think about how they connect within the system. This is the essence of the reform. The president saw it. He had been there before. He knew what sparked the war. He has been there. He went through the ranks in the NPRC until he became a head of state. He has come again and is now in his 2 innings. So he understands, he studied public administration. And so he knows that the citadel, the embodiment upon which government grow and develop is when you have a stable and sustained public service. And that's why he was inspired to have the reform of the public service. And so the issue of relationship is very critical, and that's why we are coming up with policies, legislations, to be able for people at different cadre to understand their role in relation to the role of the person at the other side. We have the civil service codes and rules. We have reviewed that one. That's particular for civil service. To understand how you enter, how you operate, how you maneuver, and how you exit. After the civil service. We have the justice sector, the judiciary code of conduct. You see, we have the standing orders of parliament. Those are the Bibles of parliament, the standing orders. You go in there, the first thing you study is the standing orders, so that you understand how you gain entry into the parliament, how you work within the parliament, and how you exit out of it. What you do and what you don't do. We have got one for political appointees. We don't have anyone. That is none. We are developing the Public Service Act for the entire public service to regulate the public service. But political appointees, we don't have. You are appointed as commissioner or whatever, or as a minister, is by the grace of God. No document to guide you.
Yeah.
How to relate with your with your civil servant. Yeah. How to relate with your commissions and agencies. How to relate with the public. When I sit here, whatever I see here is a policy statement. Mm-hmm. And so when I go out as a minister, even in my own corner with my friends, I have to be careful with what I say, because whatever I say there is a policy statement.
Okay.
So what we are doing is developing different codes for different job families and different areas to make sure that we are able to intertwine and relate those codes. So if you look what is being done at the justice sector, as the parliament, how ministers and political appointees, how do they relate with parliament? This ministerial and political appointees code is going to address that one.
Okay.
The civil service code, how do civil servants relate with ministers and other political appointees and commission and agencies is there. So we are developing this so that it become an interrelated, but across all of them we are going to have the Public Service Act.
Okay.
That serves as the hub upon which all of them fit. So like you can see, there are regulations to the Public Service Act, wherein they feed from the Public Service Act and expand on the understanding of the Public Service Act and the Constitution. So we are dealing with those issues. And this is, as I said, it was not done in overnight. It has been over 65 years of different political environments that have brought us to where we are today. Oh. And so we need to redefine our public service and give people the tools they need to work in their environment and be able to relate within their environment.
All right. Continue to stay us in the program is Minister Amara Kalon, is the Minister of Public Administration and Political Affairs. And of course, we still have in the studio Director of Public Sector Reform Unit, Sulaiman Foye Musa. The program you're watching is Good Morning Sierra Leone. We quickly take our L tip. Our tips for today look at mechanical tracheotomy. Mechanical tracheotomy is used to treat patients who have stroke symptoms. This is minimal invasive procedure used to rapidly remove large blood clots from the back arteries, and doctors can quickly restore vital blood flow and limited permanent brain drain on patients. Let's watch this short video and learn more.
Mechanical thrombectomy is used when patients come in with typical stroke symptoms. Some of those strokes are caused by blood clots in smaller blood vessels, and some of them are caused by blood clots in larger blood vessels. And if the blood vessels that are affected are larger in size, meaning a couple of millimeters in diameter, then these patients may qualify for mechanical thrombectomy. It's minimally invasive. Endovascular procedure, which means that we go through the groin blood vessels and then advance small catheters all the way up to the neck vessels, eventually to the brain. Through those catheters, we can use several different types of devices to remove blood clots from the brain. Basically, pulling blood clots out of the brain with the help of our catheters and endovascular tools. Recovery is not really dependent on the procedure itself. Once we remove our catheters, the hole seals up within a few hours. It depends on how severe the stroke symptoms were or how severe the stroke was, and the recovery in an optimal case, if the procedure goes well and there's no significant brain damage, then yes, we've seen patients walking the next day after a stroke. If there is more damage, then it could take a couple of days and even rehabilitation stay first. We have a system that all of our patients are followed, usually 2 to 4 week time window after discharge from the hospital. When we see them in clinic, evaluate them, make sure their workup has been completed for the stroke, they are on the right medications to prevent further strokes. The patient is not taken care of by one person when they arrive to the Cleveland Clinic, but a whole team. Nurses, ED physicians, neurologists, endovascular specialists are all trained to deal with these situations.
Welcome back from that L-tip, and I hope you do learned a lot from that, having to do with mechanical thrombectomy. And it's a condition, if attention is not given to it, can cause serious damage in your brain. The program is Good Morning Sierra Leone, reaching you live on the SLBC. We still have our excellent panel here this morning, consisting the Minister of Public Administration and Political Affairs, Amara Kalon, and of course the Director Public Sector Reform Units, Sulaiman Foye Musa. So, of course, Mr. Minister, before we went for the L-tip, you were making mention of this all-important Public Service Act that is going to be, you're going to be approaching Parliament with. Just before getting there, speaking about the Public Service Day on the 23rd, now, aside from the awards ceremony, I believe His Excellency the President is going to be using that day to speak to the heart and soul of public servants across the country. What message do you think you'll be tailoring to them?
Yeah, I think it's a message of resilience. It's a message of patriotism. It's a message of nationalism. It's a message of dedication to service, truly believing in what you believe. Because at the end of the day, that's who you are. We are born to serve.
Okay.
And once we are born to serve, then you have a responsibility to carry, a heavy responsibility. Because people's needs and aspirations are met by the services you provide. And I'm sure the President is going to speak to that issue. It's not about what we have done. It's about what kind of public service we need in this country. That's what I'm sure the President will speak about. And I think that's what we need as Sierra Leoneans right now. Patriotism. When you are given a job, when you applied for a job, you requested that you want to get a job. You know exactly what is in that job. When you go there, how do you do your best? As a scout, I am, by my motto, do your best.
All right. So just before letting you go in the program, we know you have other pressing cabinet functions to attend to. Can you please just whet our appetite? So how is this Public Service Act? What are some of the highlights in it?
So the bill is out now. The draft bill is out, and hopefully we'll start consultation on it next week. We're going around the country, going sector to sector, so that the input of every individual in it. Number one, we want to see what's the expanded role of the Public Service Commission. The PSRO itself has no legal jurisdiction. How do we create a legal jurisdiction? Okay. The HRMO, the Cabinet Secretariat, how do we create that environment wherein they see themselves working? But also when we talk about the phases of human resource management, from recruitment right out to retirement, how do we manage them across sectors? For example, we talk about the military, they are public servants, the police are public servants.
Certain.
But their recruitment process and their information are classified. So if we say we are going to centralize recruitment, are we going to use that same portal, that same system to recruit military police? No. Okay. It has to be defined in the Public Service Act. We see commissions and agencies now have the power to recruit. Okay. Are we going to revoke and repeal? Because the Constitution that created the Public Service Commission gave it the mandate, the only institution that have the power to recruit in this country. Okay. But that mandate has been challenged. So what the Public Service is coming to do now is to rearrange the system and make sure that we are able to create the environment where people understand how you operate. You cannot go to Parliament and you say, I'm going to recruit and I'm going to negotiate salaries for myself. No, there's going to be a system. Oh. That's why, we are going to every system. So we are going to create an umbrella body, an umbrella environment to regulate and coordinate the public service. And that's what the Public Service Act is clear to do.
All right. Thank you very much. He's the Minister of Public Administration and Political Affairs, Amar Kalon. We still have in the studio the Director of Public Sector Reform, Mr. Foye Musa. Take us through, of course, the public servants are really, I can see the lifeline of society, but in the interest of His Excellency the President, I believe this government is about service delivery. So if they are able to provide the services to Sierra Leoneans, then development is not something we'll be discussing. There will be tangibles. So, what are your thoughts insofar as performance tracker is concerned?
The performance tracking should be between supervisee and supervisor. I think that's why we have this critical pillar that is looking at performance management. Okay. I believe we want to overhaul and digitize the entire performance management system where we can have it to be more functional, effective, and realistic and time-bound. So it's important. So we are looking at that. But quickly, before I round up, before I close up, I want to end with the focus on the Public Service Day. It's a 3 days program. The 20th, which we have a health walk.
Okay.
The 22nd, we have a symposium that is bringing the old public officials and the new ones to come and talk about the public service. And finally, on the 23rd, we have the president. It's important because we are going to recognize people that have served this country and excellence. So we are expecting every Sierra Leonean, public officials, those receiving monies from the Consolidated Fund, to be part of this 3 day celebration. And we hope to see you.
Yeah, quickly, I will not let you go if you don't tell us about my institution, the SLBC. How are we really performing?
SLBC is performing. That is why now we have just completed the management and functional review for the SLBC, and it has been approved by Cabinet. Very soon, we'll be here to work with you to implement that management and functional review. That will see my uncle there, who has been stagnated for many years
In one position,
to begin to grow, and his conditions will be improved.
All right, thank you very much. We take a short break, we'll come back and continue the program.
Thank you.
As a mother of the house, whenever I want to prepare palm soup, there's no need pounding palm fruit. All I need is Nkulenu's Ghana's original palm soup base. My soup is done, and its preparation, it is not difficult at all. Nkulenu palm soup base, it's easily done with no difficulties. Just take few ladles and your soup is done. And its flavor, it's amazing. This is Nkulenu's Ghana's original palm soup base. And this is Nkulenu's Ghana's original spiced palm soup base. Iron fruit and turkey berries are naturally added.
Also available brown gold natural cocoa powder, sunny gold brown sugar, neat fufu flour, shito, pisa, and moringa. All available at Nyami Ado Enterprise, 1 Lower Waterloo Street, Freetown.
Nkulenu palm soup base.
Ghanaian original taste.
Welcome back. The program you're watching is Good Morning Sierra Leone, reaching live on the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation Television on Channel 31. We still have more issues to discuss in the program. We now jump to another issue which has to do with politics, from, of course, the public service architecture revamping now to politics. The Sierra Young People's Party is a newly formed youth-focused political movement aimed at promoting leadership, national development, unity, and active participation of young people in governance ahead of the 2028 general elections. The SLYPP is united by their commitment to democracy, justice, national development, youth empowerment, good governance, peace, and the rule of law, as they recognize the importance of young people in nation building and democratic leadership. In the studio to discuss the vision, aims, and objective of this newly formed party, plans for youth empowerment and national transformation, is the PRO of the Sierra Leone Young People's Party, Ambassador Peter Senesi. Good morning, Mr. Senesi. Welcome to the program.
No, I'm Mohamed Bokari.
Mohamed Bokari, I beg your pardon. All right, we are supposed to really have Ambassador Senesi, the PRO.
Due to some nature.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, of course, Mr. Bokari, you are the Deputy Public Relations Officer. Now, take us through why are young people thinking of the idea of bringing up the Young People's Party? What is the aims and vision of this party in the first place?
Thank you very much. SLYPP is a new political party founded 2026, early of January, right? SLYPP, the aim, because we are the future leader of this country. Yeah, so that is the reason we brought up this idea, and we thought that this country is led by so many political parties. You have me. So whilst they are the political party, they have been ruling us for quite a long time without saying, success of some of the youth. Let me say majority of the youth of this country. So SLYPP is a party that we have a new vision to promote the service of this country and seeking the attention of the young people.
So, Mr. Boka, if I can understand you quite clearly, what you're trying to state here is that the SLYPP have seen the need to hijack power from the older folks and want to bring power to young people. Is that what you're saying in essence?
Yeah.
So, how do you intend to do this? Because political power is not just about you saying we are tired of seeing the older folks in the hands of power. We want power now to reside in the hands of young people. Yeah, political leadership is not a child's play, and it's something very serious.
Yeah.
And of course, the people of Sierra Leone, I mean, what will they see to make them believe that they will entrust leadership in their hands?
To our commitments. So we are coming with different sectors to promote the services that this nation need, right?
Mm-hmm. And what are those commitments? All right, so make it very simple for our viewers. I believe the people of Sierra Leone are listening to you now. If you are suggesting that it's high time they stopped voting for older folks, they should now start voting for young people to fill in political spaces. And now you are coming with the SLYPP, a new political force that you want to, crusade the political landscape. And then, because forming political parties is about shaping the will of the people, then how do you intend to really shape the will of Sierra Leoneans by just mere commitment? You're just saying commitment in what way?
Thank you very much. The commitment is that we are going to, go throughout the districts and explain the essence of our party and what this party is going to bring to this nation and to the life of the young people of this country.
All right. He is Mohamed Bokai, the Public Relations Officer 2 of the Sierra Leone's Young People's Party, a newly formed party established this year to, like he said, they want to really engage the political space of Sierra Leone. But that will be up to you, the people of Sierra Leone, to decide. We now move to another segment within the program, which is the review of our front pages of our local tablet. For that, I begin with the Independent Observer newspaper. It opens with a banner headline: Samarin chieftaincy elections, a test case for chief minister's popularity. Union Trust Bank shareholders demand fairness and transparency. And of course, VP Julia Jallo to rally diaspora behind Sierra Leone's development. SLPHA company secretary educates FBC students on port operations, gains and future plans. Our stories you can find on the front page of the Independent Observer newspaper. Quickly I go to the Standard Times newspaper, which has on its front page London conference to highlight Vice President's vision for diaspora-led growth. ECOWAS engages Salone Media on Vision 2050. European Union and Salone form solid foundation to sinking sand. Also, you can find on the front page of Standard Times newspaper. From there, it's the satellite newspaper. It has on its front page VP Julia Jallo to rally citizens abroad. In order to safeguard financial stability, Central Bank shuts down Union Trust Bank. To restore order in Freetown, multi-agency task force unveiled. Our stories you can find on the front page of the satellite newspaper. My final pick is Glen newspaper. It opens with a banner headline: WFP expands homegrown salon feeding to improve education and nutrition. And then you have our stories you can find on the front page of Glen newspaper. And Glen newspaper happens to be my final paper in today's newspaper review. From there, I go back to you, Mr. Mohamed Bokari. In closing, what should Sierra Leoneans expect from the SLYPP as a new party? Like you said, there are many political parties, I believe up to 16 or 17 of them. You are coming to add to the number. Should they really see you as just coming to add to the number, or what's the impact are you trying to create? Are you really going to be standing the test of time?
Yeah. SLYPP, we are coming with a different dimension, and we believe that we have a strongly hold in this country. It's on all about the country.
So where is your stronghold, if you must tell us? Because political parties have their basis, their political basis.
Yeah, our stronghold, we have stronghold here in Freetown, Kenema, and Kono as well. We are trying to build a new political party office in Kailam district.
All right, thank you very much. He is Mohamed Bokari, the Public Relations Officer 2 for the Sierra Leone's Young People's Party, a newly established political party, political force to take on the political space in Sierra Leone. That's where we go down the curtains to this edition of a breakfast program, Good Morning Sierra Leone. Earlier on, we had an excellent panel on public sector reform in Sierra Leone, which was consisting the Minister of Public Administration and Political Affairs, Amara Kalon, and the Director of Public Sector Reform Unit, Sulaiman Foye Musa. The program returns tomorrow. Before we go, a quick look at your quote of the day from American politician Louis Jenich, and it says, "Perseverance is the hard work you do after you get tired of doing the hard work you've already done." The program returns tomorrow. Until then, Dennis Fraser is my name. Goodbye.